Check, check. 1, 2. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Yes. Okay, good. Ooh. Oh, the lights are a little so harsh. Let's tune that down. That's more comfortable. We're at a more relaxed environment, less interrogation room, less the lighting of the Russian operatives who financed the murder of U.S. troops in Afghanistan kind of lighting, and more of just I've given up on my country ever responding to a global pandemic in a reasonable way type of lighting. Good afternoon. Here in Los Angeles, it is 3:08 p.m. Sunday, the 28th of June, coinciding with the 28th episode of Live on Lockdown. I'm your host, Baratunde Thurston. Haven't seen you in this form in a week. Oh, what a week it's been. I want to welcome my Zoom studio members. Let me throw y'all up on gallery view. Hello, hello. Nice to see some regulars and some new faces and some returnees. Excited about that. And for those of you who are out on the internet somewhere, hello. I see you, Paul Day, Shelley Fitzpatrick, John Spelling, and Linda Polkerel. Wow. All right. We might have to talk about Mama Arnita as one of her dear friends. Good to have you with us today. So for those of you who've been rolling with me for a while, you will know that I show up with various degrees of preparation for this broadcast. Sometimes I've got like video clips and newspaper items and extra media just to pipe in and guests lined up. And other times I'm like, oh, snap, it's showtime. So this is one of those, oh, snap, it's showtime. And I'm going to roll with y'all and lean on y'all a little more than usual and maybe improvise a little bit more than usual. I think my biggest reminder announcement is I got a podcast. And if you haven't heard, I'm going to tell you again. If you have heard, I'll tell you again, I have a podcast. It is available wherever you get your podcast. It's called We're Having a Moment. And it is fueled in a lot of momentum by the Live on Lockdown experience. In fact, some of your voices are in the show. You know who you are. And that episode 2 drops tomorrow. It's all about protests. So if you remember me talking to anybody on this show about protests in their city and what it's like on the ground, that will be coming to a global audience distributed through iHeart and iTunes and iFeel and just like all the things. So I want to thank you. I want to encourage you to subscribe and rate and write a review and tell your friends and probably your enemies too, because if anything, let's be honest, your friends, if you're here, are probably already on the right side of history. It's your enemies we need to get more educated. So send my podcast to thine enemies with love. And I'll drop a link in the chat. And I guess everywhere this thing is being broadcast, so it'll be a little easier to do that. And yeah, if you've got things that you want to talk about, shoot me a message in one of the comment systems that you're on. Raise your hand if you're in the room with Zoom, and I will create a fun link for y'all. All right, so let's call this. I'm gonna chat with my chatters. Ron Felton. I have been busy lately. I've had to give my voice a rest too. I'm like going back to musical theater vocal warm-ups before I do these things. Fa 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 fa. And I might even hit up my middle school choral director for a few tips on keeping this fresh. But let's call this LOL. All right, so that's the link to the podcast for those of you in the studio, and for those of you out in the great yonder. I hope that you can see the link I just dropped. I'm still getting smoother, but always learning. There's so many pieces of technology glued together right now, and so if it doesn't come through cleanly, hit me up, text me 202-894-8844, and let me just check in with the chat. Oh, I got some nice feedback. Domingo Moranta, welcome. I don't recognize your name, so I think you may be new in the Zoom, at least to me. You said you loved the first episode. The mashup of your TED Talk was amazing. Thank you. I was wondering how that was going to come across. I mean, I think, the goal of this show was to try to preserve, to create a snapshot of what we're going through right now with the pandemic and the systemic racism and the resistance to that, most importantly. And so I've had these like monologues, and so some of the show is me talking to myself actually, and just rewinding the tape and be like, oh, right. When I went to that Whole Foods on March 13th, that's when it was real for me. And, citing the TED Talk from a year ago. And then in other episodes, I bring people in right in the moment. I have a few interviews scheduled this week to kind of talk very presently about what's up. But the goal is to kind of establish an audio document, and because it feels like we're in a historic moment, and I want to call it while we're in it. I don't want to wait 50 years to talk about what it means. And also, because of doing the show with y'all, I've realized how incomplete the mainstream media narrative is on coronavirus, on protests, on how we talk about policing. And so it's in this dialogue that I have learned the power of another narrative. And so when the iHeart folks approached and they're like, hey, do you want to create a little capsule? I was like, yeah, because I think I know the perspective I want to make sure gets preserved and if possible, amplified. So I'm glad you liked it, Domingo. Terry found a subscriber now. Good. We're just going to use this show to boost my subscribers. So I'm just going to go one by one, and just if you can send me a screenshot or even like a video capture of you clicking subscribe, then 5 stars, then writing best podcast ever. Why come this guy doesn't host all the podcasts? That'll be like our work, and we should be done, in like 45 minutes, and we can all call it. Eliza says, isn't we're having a moment kind of co-opting menopausal women? And winky smile. Interesting point. I didn't come at it from that perspective because of the body that I grew up in. So thank you for raising that point, that very serious point, Eliza. And yeah, let's see. Okay, good. You can hear me. Already did it. And thank you for those watching kind of remotely chiming in on that. So before I kind of bring folks on, which I definitely need to do because of my lack of a full docket of things or prepared monologues, I want to acknowledge where I think we are right now on June 28th, 2020 in the United States. It's where I live. It's, I guess, where I'm loyal to because I was born here. I was listening to this great KCRW show called Good Food. And it's a podcast and a radio show. It's a radio. What is there a difference? It sounds, it's an audio experience, and it has a title, and the title is Good Food. And they were talking to this Black dude from, I think, Tennessee about barbecue. And my memory of the episode is tied to my physical experience at the time, which was driving through Santa Monica. And we haven't been through Santa Monica since the protests, since some property destruction. And so it was very intense memory of hearing this brother talk about barbecue and driving around the 3rd Street area and seeing the Gap boarded up and graffitied, seeing the REI, one of my favorite stores ever, boarded up and graffitied, and seeing a lot of people eating out at restaurants right next to the graffiti place, not very much mask wearing in this snapshot. And so while I'm seeing that, I'm hearing this dude talk about barbecue and dry rub versus barbecue sauce, and how there's this whole thing about there's people who don't believe in barbecue sauce. Like it's a God you could deny. It's like, okay, I don't believe, I mean, you may not like it, but to not believe in it is like a very extreme position, I think, about sauce. So there's people who don't believe in it, and he's talking about basically it's the same flavors as a dry rub. So, and he starts talking about people's favorite foods and like what they think is better. And he's like, in my experience, people say something's better, but it really just means they knew it. And so it's like, okay, you make your pound cake with sour cream, you make yours with yogurt. And it's just a matter of like how each of your mothers made them for you when you were a kid. And so familiarity breeds loyalty and value. So that was a real long way of saying, like, yeah, I love America, but I don't know. I was born here. What do I know? Like, I think it's a constant dance. Um, and so as I look at the status of the United States on June 28, 2020, with the thing that started this show 8 weeks, 12 weeks ago, coronavirus still out there. It's like there's people who don't believe in the coronavirus. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you believe in it. The Rona believes in you, and the Rona's coming for you, and it's coming for our economies, and it's coming for our weak public health infrastructure, and it's coming for our conspiracy theories, and it's coming for our damaging rhetoric. It's coming for our 5G paranoia. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. If anything, it exploits the weaknesses. It exploits the racism. It exploits the ignorance. And so it's been very frustrating to look at the curve that we were trying to flatten and see, like, we didn't even try. We didn't even try. I will do my best to, like, pull this image for you somewhere real time, because it's dramatic when you look at a place like Italy, and you look at a place like Germany, you look at a place like China, and then you see, Jose, can you see the coronavirus map of the United States? And it's like we didn't even try. So I'm grabbing that. I'll drop this in a moment, because I think we should all kind of take a look at that. All right. Oh, good. I'm going to get some comparables. All right. Let's get Italy up in here too, because that's kind of what started this here show. All right. So here go what we're going to do. I am going to attempt to do some fancy real-time producing to show you. All right, let's grab here. Boom. So that there is the New York Times updated today. And that is Italy's curve. All right. And then I'm going to drag in. This is Spain's curve. All right. Let me just shift a little bit on this side. So we got Italy up top. Remember Bergamo? Remember David Orban, my very first guest on my very first episode? And I quote, "The United States risks getting hit worse because it hasn't taken the measures." Thank you, David, as always, for trying to save lives of a national leadership that valued us less than you did. The second chart here, looking at Spain spiking up, slamming the brakes down. So you get this thing where you go, oh, we're climbing steep. Oh, they're about to go off a cliff. And then, oh, almost down to zero. Spain is as well. And then you look at the best funded nation in the history of the modern world, with more universities, more science, more guns, and more dollars. And this is what we look like. It's sad. It's actually, it's pathetic. It's sad because we ain't even tried. We got to the top of the curve and thought we would just hang out. Let's just hang out up here at the top of the curve. Let's do that. That was our choice. It's as wild. It's depressing and it's sad. And we've been talking about this for so long. It is so avoidable. And now you see these states undoing their hyper-aggressive reopenings. Too slow, too late. You feel it. What I feel as I watch Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is I watch a man who put his relationship with the president above his obligation to his residents in the state of Texas. And he didn't want to embarrass the president by announcing a stay-at-home order. And that's what Democrats do, and that's what liberals do. So people die. And Houston's about to be overrun. And it's like, we didn't even get out the first wave. We just like rode the top of it and then waiting for another wave to come along. It's worse now. It's actually, I guess that's the point. For all the stuff we were talking about weeks ago, all the sacrifice we were talking about making all the charts, and this is how you reopen, and the freaking Harvard white papers, and the governor's trying to, it doesn't matter. Because look, clearly, as a general outcome of a bunch of policy decisions, we don't care. Obviously, many of us do. I care. You're watching the show right now, so you care. I got a one round of interaction on an Instagram thread over the past week about masks and about irresponsible leadership and not being willing to mandate face coverings. And this person who was like, not coming out of the Breitbart universe, they were subscriber to a lot of my stuff, so I know at least what they're getting from me is relatively sound, but they're getting a whole bunch of other stuff too. And they were like, ultimately, we each have to decide what's best for us and how we respond to this. No, that is not how any of this, that's actually no. Ultimately, this is not an individual rights situation. It doesn't matter. I heard a story yesterday, friend in the great state of Minnesota, in St. Paul, and their experience has been a lot of mask wearing, people taking things very seriously, but they got groups of friends in their workplace who were like rolling deep, going to Wisconsin because there's no rules in Wisconsin. So they want to go party and hit bars in large indoor groups in Wisconsin. And it's like prohibition. But the prohibition is against reason and safety. So it's like, we want to go where public safety is the weakest. So we got this Swiss cheese thing. And I'm personally exhausted and bummed because I remember when I had this hope. Y'all remember Baratunde like 6-7 weeks ago when I was citing Harvard white papers and talking about this is how we reopen and what we need is a testing, tracing, and supported isolation. And I'm just like listening to myself. And I am doing that voice to myself. And like, that's how I'm just like, oh, I actually believed. I thought we could do it. And now I'm just like, I guess not. Like, wow. Because it's all harder. It's all harder in this curve. When you're at the base of zero here, that's one thing. When you're slamming on the brakes at the top, you can kind of fall back down. But when you just decide to hold at the plateau, this chart says we give up. This chart says we give up. And I'm just pissed about it. I'm annoyed about it. I'm angry because we told you and we tried. And for all of my talk about people have the power and we come together, we could do this. Yeah. But also the government matters. And I would be reflecting the shortcomings of the comment I just quoted to you. It's up to each of us to decide. It's not. That's like a necessary but insufficient condition for defeating a pandemic. Yeah, it takes a bunch of individual people doing the right thing. And then it takes collective decision making to do the right thing. And that's called government. And we don't have that. We do not have effective government. And on top of that, tell them why you're mad. Okay. So it's so bad. This is bad. This is the laugh of someone who's like seeing things very clearly. And it's just like, You had a shot, America. And now we're at this higher plateau. And it seems like at every possible moment, whether it has to do with masks and PPE, whether it has to do with recovery funding and transparency around those dollars, whether it has to do with stay-at-home orders, whether it has to do with unemployment support, we have taken the wrong turn at the fork in the road at every possible fork. And we had a warning. Well, I'm going to pause there. I needed to Whew, apparently get something off my chest. It's I'm so depressed. Not depressed. I am deflated because I'm like, what do you do now? Do you just hunker down and vote hard and like how do you retrieve the reins from the people in charge who have shown that they don't care? And this president's still out here defunding shit, like taking out inspectors general, and we are the EU. The EU's got the right idea. Stay your ass at home, America. You are now welcome here. You take a ticket behind Brazil and Russia because we cannot trust you to get your stuff together. Mm-mm-mm. All right, let me take a look at y'all and see. We're going to go to North Carolina, check back in with my main man, Joseph Margolis.
Hey,
Are you
Barry.
with me?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. How are you doing?
Um, how
Well,
are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. You know, I kind of I really I guess I'm happy to be here because I feel like you're sort of echoing a lot of the angst that I have. In our state, it's a little different. It's even more painful because it's up close. But we have a governor and a secretary of Health and Human Services who are clearly committed to following the science, and then we have an NCGA where they just it's not a veto proof majority in the General Assembly there, but it's GOP led, and they are they every other week they're throwing up a reopen the gym bill, and even as the trends are going up all over the country, and public health people are warning, hey, we're getting close to a place we're going to have to phase back and go into phase one and lock things down again, and it's unnerving, it's unsettling. They in the this is an interesting thing. It, uh, they there was they recently had to pass an exception to their anti-mask bill because North Carolina has an anti-mask bill because it was passed in the 50s in response to KKK activity.
Wow.
Right. So we have so they passed a waiver to that in response to giving people an opportunity to wear a mask. But for some reason, the House passed extending it. It's set to expire on August, and the House voted to extend it to until February. But but for some reason, at 2 a.m., someone in the Senate took it out of the bill and passed it. Now they've sent it to the governor's desk. So we have this. So the day before, the governor put in a mask requirement where anytime you go into a building or anything like that, you have to wear a mask, or where you can't safely social distance from someone in a public space. So it's almost like it was a passive aggressive response to that. So now there's going to be confusion about what's legal to do. And so the one of the reasons why that law was passed is because there were people who were concerned about now I don't, because there's not as much, there might not be as much ill-founded concern about white people wearing masks anymore, but there's a lot of ill-founded concern about black people wearing masks, and that was one of the concerns about creating that waiver for it, so there just wouldn't be a law and put law enforcement in a position where they had to question it. So that's just my update in North Carolina
All
of just
right.
some of my frustration. And I had a point I wanted to make because I just think this all goes back to narrative, and it still somehow falls back on racism. I just I watched Do the Right Thing for the first time in a while Friday night, and it but I think it's because of what's happening now. I was taken back to the time where I was 17 years old in high school, and uh, there was a black-led organization in the high school I went to that did a screening at the school of Do the Right Thing, and it. I remember it watching it, and my first reaction at the time was anti-black, and I didn't, but I didn't know. Well, I'm not even going to defend it. I'm just going to let it be what it is. Uh, and it wasn't like an overt racist reaction. It's just that I centered and had more sympathy for Sal in that moment where he lost
Mm.
pizzeria, and at that time. And I remember the interesting thing was I was 17 years old, and one of my colleagues on student council, I think I gave him a ride home that night, or maybe we talked about it at a later time. And he, African American, black guy, and uh, he was. I talked to him about that and expressed my discontent about that, and he was just simply like, you know, they should have put some pictures of black people. He could have just put some black people on the wall, right? And I didn't get it. I just kind of we didn't talk about it anymore. I didn't get it at the time. I was,
Yeah.
you know, but I was thinking about it today, yesterday, a little bit, and thinking about that. Like, he was 15 years old, I was 17, and he already knew. And I was taking US history, an honors level US history in high school. So it wasn't like I wasn't capable of getting learning some narratives about learning truthful narratives and understanding, like, there's a whole complexity there, that Sal is proud of the food that he served these kids all their lives,
Yeah.
but he doesn't have the awareness to say, okay, now that they're fully grown adults, they're expressing who they are, and he's like, by rejecting their request to put some of them who had that request to put pictures on the wall, and then by further going on and saying that word he said and breaking up the boombox, and uh, he just totally showed that he really didn't value the humanity as much as he did the money. And I didn't see that at the time. And my point about that is because I was in US history, and I was learning at the time that the Civil War was fought over states' rights and not slavery.
Yeah.
And so I say this as kind of a message to uh, I'm thinking about narrative and how that shapes things, because then this is how all the COVID comes together with the crazy, with the racism. I don't want to call it crazy because it's my identity. I have to sort of own the racists out there that are fighting their fight are actually, whether I like it or not, fighting for my ability to have more privilege in society and in our society. And so in Morganton, North Carolina, there's this one of the last monuments, because there's been a lot of Confederate monuments taken down in North Carolina over the past few weeks. One of the last ones standing is in Morganton. It's where my partner's hometown is. And so it's a pretty rural city. And what and so in this old courthouse, there's footage of, and it's probably on the internet. If you look up Morganton Civil War monument protests, you can see it. Nobody is social distancing at all. Like, there, nobody is social. None of the protesters are social distancing. They're armed to the teeth with like AR-15s and stuff, and it's because they got some message on Facebook that Antifa is going to little ass Morganton, North Carolina, to tear down this one monument. And um and so it's easy for me to laugh at that too, because it is very ignorant, and I struggle with this, but I'm really trying to grapple with this whole other side of it. It's just, you know, when I, in Just Mercy, in any one of Brian Stevenson, Just Mercy's Brian Stevenson says is that, you know, someone who's a murderer is not just a murderer. And so, and this is not my work. This is not the work. The thing I'm about to propose is not anything I would believe is the work of Black people. But a racist is not just a racist. And especially because I'm white, I feel like it's more my work to grapple with it than it is Black people. And and I would even further suggest that it's the work of all white people to we have to, uh because I didn't have the right narrative to understand what my friend Chris was talking about when we were talking about do the right thing when I was 17.
Yeah.
I've had to read books. I've had to I've had to listen to people such as yourself, Baratunde. I've had to take classes. I've had to get in situations and around Black people who love me enough and care for me enough to just let me be who I am and be problematic, and been, put in my place. Uh, and so it's so I've in that sense, I guess, it's not been easy, and I'm not complaining about that, because I feel like it's the least I can do. But it's just, the point I'm making is, especially for white people tuning in, we all pretty much, especially those of us who are maybe Gen X, late millennials, we're we're just as miseducated as those racists that in Morganton. We all started at the same place as they did. And so that's why I feel like it's our work, because the cross section is that they are anti-mask too. Hardly any of them were wearing masks. Cops were wearing masks. They were getting in everybody's face and, just having a good old time. So it's that there's definitely a crossover there, of people who think like that, who tend to be less interested in public health. And before I go, that's my take. But before I go, I wanted to show you this, Baratunde. I did have a different background for you. There you go.
Talk some more so people can see it.
Okay, so here is the background. Last week, Baratunde gave me some shit about this "keep calm and carry on" sign, and he said I should get a better background. So I thought about American flag, but then I said, no, we'll go with this right here. So
well done, Joseph. Man, thank you for sharing all that. You're really opening yourself up, and I appreciate you sharing your journey with so many others. There's been a lot of comments about what Joseph shared. I want to highlight a few of them. From one of our regulars, Justina Reeves: "I've always said that I will know who you are by whether you were sadder about Sal's Pizzeria being destroyed or Radio Raheem being killed." Nice to hear someone rediscovering the conflict. Well done, Joseph. A lot of love for Do the Right Thing up in the comments. And I think, there's you said a lot, and what I want to re-highlight is no one is just one thing. I had the privilege of joining part 2 of a panel discussion. I'm dropping the link in the Zoom chat and in all the other chats. Is a conversation on race and justice with Rev D, a Black activist, Reverend Breonna Jenkins, out of, I believe, Austin, Texas. I have to double check that. Another activist, Daryl Davis, who is like 5th level Jedi black belt at fighting racism. He converts Klan members into not being Klan members, and not just average Klan members, like the wizards and the dragons. And then he keeps their robes as like a testament to his victory. So he has a closet. He's a Black man with a closet full of Klan robes that have been given to him by former leaders of the Klan all over this country. So I would never take that on, ever. But I respect him for his like Yoda, Obi-Wan level Mace Windu commitment. And then me. And so we were pulled together by Misha Collins, who I just met a few weeks ago through text messaging. He's an actor in a show called Supernatural on the CW, which I still haven't seen, but it's a very, very big show apparently. And he's got like a lot of young white people who are fans. And so him and one of his co-stars, Daniil, I think, they're like, yo, we're going to use our showtime to like pull together this panel and just like let these Black people talk. And so the 4 of us kind of talked amongst ourselves and answered a bunch of questions. So it's a long setup to say, like, we did that many weeks ago, maybe 3.5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Time is weird. But in peak forgetting about COVID times in America. And then we got back together again this Friday. And I said it the first time around, and I felt it again this time, like, we should all listen to Rev D. You can find the Reverend's handles and all on that YouTube link I dropped, because Rev D was sharing this point about we are more than just one thing. We are more than the worst thing we've done. We're more than the best thing we've done. And we've got to be able to live with the full spectrum and with the duality and with the joy and the pain. and not just want things to be over, and just like, whether it's a Me Too level, like, oh, but that man was so good. Why are you trying to ruin this good man with your tales of how he raped you? Like, why would you do that to him? It's like, yeah, he did great things and he did this terrible thing. And like, that's people too. And we've got to find it in us to like hold space for the whole person. And so I just, when you talked about like, they're not just racist, I think that's a deeply human way of looking at it. And I think truly people on all sides can learn from an attempt to do that. Um, and I think, for those of us on the left, like I've even found myself trying to like apply the principles against myself when I might find myself being like too dogmatic. And it's like, okay, so I believe in redemption, right? I believe that someone who serves their time should be able to return to their community, get a job without confessing to all the stuff they already paid a price for, vote. Like, you're not just defined by the worst thing you do in your life. So I got to have space for redemption of like the formerly felonized, and for the redemption of the formerly massively ignorant racialized, and just know that like people are capable of a lot, and we can have room. And so I can like celebrate Mitt Romney for joining that Black Lives Matter rally without trying to just like clown him. I'm like, I appreciate you showing up, brother. I appreciate you being the one who voted for impeachment, even though I definitely did not want you to be president. And I think your tax policies are whack, so we can try to hold a lot of it at once. So just thank you, Joseph, for going there. I want to go somewhere else. We see another hand up, and bring back Daniel, who we know through history, Santa Monica resident, mostly. We've seen him walking through these streets. We also have taken a great interest in Daniel's love life. And so I'm hoping, we'll get a perspective on Santa Monica and like the disturbances. But I really want to know what's up with your heart space, Daniel. So no pressure, just, now that we're sitting in a nation that cares about nothing, tell us that you found love and it's all good. Daniel Zala, you're on.
Man, I'm still searching, still looking, but I got my lady friend Ashley from Palm Springs coming to visit me in Santa Monica on Thursday, so that's pretty exciting. Coming to stay. She asked if I had room for her at my place, and I said yes, I do. And it's my birthday next Saturday, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in terms of a birthday party. It's a little hard to gather people, as you guys know, and I'm not so into the whole idea of, I know some people do the drive-by birthday parties. It's not really my thing. I don't think I need a bunch of people in cars honking, waving flags. So might just gather some people for a little picnic here in Palisades Park. But yeah, that's the update. Ashley coming on Thursday, so stay tuned.
Thank you. We love you, Daniel. We love Ashley. She's into. We love shot skis, even though it kind of weirded us out for a minute. We love that the people at the restaurant had masks on, because we were definitely like nervous about that. And hey, while you're on, what's been happening with this model that you built around like measuring individual risk associated with certain activities and COVID?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm pretty excited about it. I've been spending a lot of time building it out. I think the need for a model like this to help people manage risk has never been more urgent or evident, given the outbreaks we're seeing all over the country. I've been playing around with a new data set that just came out of Florida. Florida released epidemiology stats of over 100,000 patients who've tested positive, and breaking it down by age, how many of them were hospitalized, how many of them died. So I've been doing some regression analysis, going deep into the old bag of stats, McKinsey Goldman toolbox, to come up with some formulas and models for that. And I'm actually in talk with a company, a mobile dating app company, with another run by another Harvard friend, actually, to use the model to help guide safer dating, to help them provide some robust empirical evidence about, this kind of outdoor date on a patio is safe versus this kind of indoor thing is less safe. So it's looking like it could actually go from this kind of abstract experiment to something that people could actually be using in the real world, which is pretty exciting.
Daniel, thank you. He is at vitaminz.substack.com. That's where you can find. I just checked it out. The man's been busy, and you're like a pandemic love doctor, Daniel. I love that.
That'll be the title of the reality show.
Yes. Well, great to see you. Thank you for coming back on the show. Yeah, and give Ashley our best, and happy birthday to Daniel. We have done in our household and 2 different types of birthday celebrations for friends. One was a group of maybe 6 of us gathered atop Mount Angeles, which is a local mountain, which is like right there. I'm so, as the New Yorker in me, I'm like, I'm not used to, like, you just have a mountain right there and you're not in the Rockies. Like, what is LA? How do you have mountains and the ocean? Like, it still doesn't add up how you have all this nature and all this city. It's like, something's not right. I feel like you're like bending dimensions, whatever. We went to the top of a mountain, which was like a 20-minute drive away, which makes no damn sense. And we stayed away from each other, but it was kind of a nice view and very small. And then another friend, we did like a dance party we basically turned it into like a street dance party. And that was fun too. And obviously there's the Zooms and things like that. But for those of you trying to celebrate, I'm also going to experiment. I'm going to see if I can share. I don't think I set up this ability in advance. So yeah, my scenes, new scene, duplicate current scene, right? Yeah, that's not gonna work. I wanted to pull Daniel's website up live. Oh, I can. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Did y'all see that? That was like I think that was the singularity. I shared my desktop, but then I was like sharing my desktop within my desktop. So you just got this like infinite tunnel. That was pretty dope. I'm gonna do it again. What? It's that's tripping. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, let's just keep it simple. Anyway, you can go. I dropped his link in the chat, so you can visit on your own time. But I saw he's got like these charts around red states and blue states, and basically places where Trump won at the state and county level, and case reporting. Oh, you know what? I can share that with you with less pull on my CPU because I just like doing this. So here go what we're gonna do. I'm gonna stay with the pandemic love doctor for one more moment and just drop this here. Great. So what we're looking at here, where new cases have been reported each day. And this, I have not seen this chart before. The New York Times put it together. Well, multiple sources. So wait, hold up. Daniel, let me bring you back on. You should be talking us through this if you don't mind.
Sure, happy to.
All right, so what are we looking at?
So this is a chart showing the change in new COVID-19 cases over time. On the left, we have states. On the right, we have counties. Blue is Democratic Clinton voting counties and states. Red are Trump voting counties and states. And I was struck by just how, I mean, the picture could not be clearer, right? That the first counties and states to be hit really hard by this were places like New York, LA, place that tend to vote Democrat. It makes sense, right? Those are places where we have international travelers. They're very dense. That's where infectious disease spreads. And so I think there are two takeaways that I had from this. One is that in any pandemic, the rural areas, the red-leaning, suburbs and rural areas are going to get hit later in a pandemic. But it goes deeper than that. I mean, anecdotally, from all my friends who spent time in Trump counties and states, say that they just don't give a shit and they're not wearing masks. And the behavior is such that's what young people are crowding together in bars and doing whatever the hell they want, and that's what's really spreading the disease. Thank
you, Daniel, our pandemic love doctor, correspondent, and data maven. And I'm just going to leave this up for a second so you can see it too. Is the image legible or is it reversed for you? It's legible. Thumbs up if the data looks cool. Okay, great. Oh, because I have my screen mirrored in Zoom. That's why. Let me switch over to Ecamm. Let you into the. Yeah, man. That's two Americas right there is what that is as well. So I'm gonna clear that. And you speak of the anecdote as another one I heard. A friend drove cross country from New York to Colorado and just came across places where they legit thought the coronavirus wasn't a thing. They're like, it's not real. Like, why are you wearing masks? Like, we didn't, is that real? Is that true? And you're just like, oh, we're, we're doomed. That's what we're doomed. Okay, let's go to two more. I see two more hands. Actually, I see three more hands. So I'm going to shut up. Eve Blossom, you've had your hand up for a while. Let us know how things are going. We last heard from Eve a week ago. There was a situation with her and her beloved, which is the most adorable way to refer to one's partner ever, and a young guest in their house, like a renter who would not leave and was going out and partying, potentially bringing COVID back into the house. So, Eve, what do you want to share with us? Do you have an update on the housemate situation?
Well, the situation is the same. So that hasn't changed. And I think it's going to change in about 2 to 3 weeks. So that's kind of where we got to an understanding. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But there are two other different things I wanted to talk about today. I don't know if anybody saw this. It was trending on YouTube. There was a guy by the name of Michael Neff. He's a bar owner in Houston, Texas. I wish I had the link if I could find it, but it's a YouTube video and it was trending and he called it the PSA from the future. And I thought it was brilliant because I was just saying how for some people to really understand, it's going to start to hit almost everybody, whether it's extended friend or, a cousin or what have you. And from these epicenters, when people start doing, sharing with what they're experiencing, it may shift how people really think about COVID and what they're willing to do with the mask and all that. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but I do think when this guy was so strong, it's a pretty long video, but when you have a bar owner who's telling you what's the best thing to do for for your city, for people, how to protect them, then you know that you're going to listen to them. You hear a lot of people say, I don't believe the media, I don't believe the government, I don't believe our leaders. But when you have a fellow, bar owner in Houston telling you, we fucked up, you do not want to do what we're doing, right? So it's pretty strong. And he's sitting there and he's so eloquent. He's got this cowboy hat on. So I just want to bring that up because I think this is the beginning of where you're starting to see where we will listen to fellow Americans from red states. I think that'll make a big difference. That's what I've been hoping for. And this is what I'm starting to see. So I just wanted to bring that up to everybody. And if you can find it. And then the other thing I wanted to share was, as you know, Baratunde is very, very, very inspirational to all of us. So much so that Joseph has him in his background. So I wanted just to let Baratunde know and all of you that I launched a podcast this week called Care by Design. And the reason why I'm very excited about it is that as my background is in design and healthcare and what have you, and Care by Design is something we really, really do need right now to talk about. And so I'm pulling some of the great people. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to pull Baratunde in for one interview. But it really is. I started with Cameron Sinclair, who's quite a famous guy, and it went just everywhere. And it's like it's nice to see the feedback of people being very open to hearing from lots of different people on frontline workers and how they're trying to change and help with COVID. So and talking to people who embody care by design, which is a lot of us. But and so anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for inspiring me.
Thank you, Eve. And congratulations on the podcast launch. It's on Anchor and on all the podcast directories. I just dropped the link to the tweet from the show. I put it in all the chats out there in the open internet and in our private, exclusive, super cool Zoom studio. Good luck with the housing situation, Eve. Thank you for sharing that, both of those pieces. And I think with the bartender, I found an AP story from yesterday about him. I don't have the YouTube link yet. So if anybody finds that link while we're still making this, I will try to play it for you live. But otherwise, we can all look for it later. Thank you again, Eve. Meanwhile, let's go back to Minneapolis to Gunnar Carlson, who we haven't seen in a couple of weeks. Gunnar, how you doing?
Let me unmute here. I'm good. I think, as I said to you in a one of our text chats. I haven't openly wept in a few weeks, for no reason. So that's good. We're getting back to something near normal. Like you were just saying, I'm used to seeing all the buildings boarded up now. And I'm actually noticing when taggers have gone over somebody else's art or something and, commenting on, oh, I used to like the mural that was there. They changed it out. Or so that's our new normal here. And when it comes to mass, it's funny. I just went, I like to mountain bike. So I went away from the city, about 2 hours north in Minnesota, to an area that has like 35, 45 miles of mountain bike trails, camping for a weekend with friends, socially distanced. So we had like 8 tents on 2 camp. It was ridiculous, but we all drove separate. It was all this coordinating, and it worked out well though. But that is to say, up there in that area, masks were, the signs on the doors changed from, in Minneapolis, it's mandatory if you're indoors right now. Up there, it was, you can wear one if you want, but you don't have to. And every sign said you don't have to. And you would have people, like we had a woman who we had walked in and I just hadn't put mine on yet because I thought we were just going to, we're getting off the bikes and everything. And she kind of stepped back from the table and she was like, guys, I'm 41 years old. I got 4 kids at home. Could you please put on a mask or go outside? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm actually getting it, but to put that, put the onus on that, woman to have to beg patrons when she's just trying to make a living because she's got 4 kids at home was ridiculous to see. And I pray and I hope that they don't deal with some wave of infection because they have one small hospital in that area. They just couldn't handle it if something bad happened. But I am enjoying with the mask thing. I now have masks with all different messages on them, right? Like we can use this as a moment to
yeah.
I was talking to a guy the other day and he's like, I'm going to get one that just says fuck you because that's how I feel right now. Like, and I'm like, you probably could find that pretty easily at this point, right? So he I have the kente cloth, the movement for Black Lives. If you've seen they're leading a lot of the protests. They did a really, really cool thing here when they were doing the defund the police rally and all these others, and they got the masks out to lots of different places, but they have 4 messages on them. So the one mask that I have says "Stop killing Black people." So depending on my mood that day, and if I'm feeling a little more militant, then I got to pull that one out. I have some that talk about just like Black authors and give you some names and some book like. That is to say, there is an opportunity here for all of us to be a little more mindful with our masks, and it's an easy way for us to just put some messages out there, and to have some fun with it. And if you're not in a good mood, don't be in a good mood, but do it in your mask. So, but beyond that, I mean, it's the new normal here. The 38th in Chicago, which is the location where Mr. Floyd's life was taken from him, has turned into a they're calling it a sacred space, and you're not allowed to sell anything there. That's a pretty common area. A lot of people were coming through on their bikes. Like, cycling is huge here. Like us in Portland have to fight about who's the most bikeable community in the country. But they literally posted signs now, and they did a social media campaign to say, don't bike through here. This is not a tourist stop on your 50-mile ride for the day. This is a sacred space, and if you're going to come here, be respectful. And so it's morphed into a space where people go to heal and to just take a moment. And so I haven't gone back over there in a couple weeks due to the fact that I have gotten my weeping under control. I didn't know if I could handle it, but I am going to go back over there and take some more photos. And then they have a really beautiful, if nobody's seen it, the graveyard with all the names, the art installation that went up in a park just down the way from 38th in Chicago. And you see a lot of people who are going and doing almost like a walking meditation. And it is their headstones, and they have, all the names, George's name, Brianna's name, Ahmad's name. They're just all there, and more than go up as whoever is installing this learns of more. So it's growing, and it is, it's a beautiful thing. And beyond that, we've got some hopeful stuff happening here too. The kids are all right, man. They are still, to watch them, I worry with COVID and stuff, but what they are doing for direct action, the direct calls I see in my social media for financial needs and asking to get whether it is the one I saw today was a woman who was in a domestic violence situation. I watched a group of high school kids raise the money to get her out of that home, and 4 guys from a football team went and picked her up. She's in a hotel now and being taken care of. I mean, there's good stuff happening. So, and here I go again. But yeah, so we're good.
Gunnar, thank you. Can I ask you one more thing?
Yeah.
I've read about your city council voting unanimously, I think, to dismantle the police, but
It's getting crazy here.
it makes sense of like what's symbolic, what's real. Does the state legislature have to weigh in? Like, do you have knowledge of what's happening with the city of Minneapolis and its police department?
Do they have to weigh in? Do they have to weigh in? I mean, they're working on, right? And when I say they, the one I'm going to refer to, and I'm just going to put it out there, I do not like this man, and I consider him to be a prick or an asshole or whatever you want to call him. His name is Paul Gazelka. Look him up if you have any free time and you just want to be annoying. Please troll him or do whatever you like to do with your internet tools. The man has done such things recently as when he started to talk about the rioting and the looting, he was like, I have constituents of mine, mothers in the suburbs who are very, very scared right now. What are they supposed to say to their children? To which this guy is so repugnant that you literally had all the Karens coming on and being like, hi, Karen here, not worried about it. I'm still fine out here in my place in the suburbs. You can stop being an asshole now. I mean, that's the response he got. So the council is working to get this done. I mean, they have a supermajority. They've already done the first parts of it. And right now what we're getting on a daily basis is like Mayor Fry, who at this point I just think of as being like a 25-year-old, even though he's 38, but he just looks very young and he's clearly in over his head. And the guy looks like he wants to cry every time it gets tough. I wouldn't want to be doing his job right now, but that's what it is. But he's basically trying to say, let's hold on here for a minute. And, the whole reason we didn't change, because we just had, when Mayor Fry came in, the council had asked to change the rules around how the chief is managed. And right now he only answers to the mayor. He does not answer to the council. So the police are just kind of off on the side. And their reasoning was the chief said, well, I would never be able to do my job if I had to answer to 15 individuals. Well, boo frickin' who, like figure it out, right? And we'll find someone who can do the job. And we're running into some issues with that with the mayor, but the city council is moving ahead. Those that want to move ahead, Jeremiah Ellison has done a very good job through all this. Lisa Bender, who's running this council. I mean, there's a lot of them there. Philippe Cunningham, who is my council member, who, full disclosure, I didn't really like that much before this, but he's coming through. He's doing well. And I am, I'm hopeful that they're going to get somewhere. And in the meantime, I'm just laughing and teeing. So I'm a public affairs guy, right? Like I study politics for fun. To watch them just get into these cat fights and this like pissing and moaning in public. And just every time, like the mayor will go have this, what he thinks is a very reasoned, impassioned, and do like a 45-minute interview. And then you'll have 5 council members who are like, that motherfucker's crazy. And this is why. And I mean, they just go off and they do it quickly and they're all reacting. And then he's like, but guys, you're being mean to me. I'm trying to work with you. And they're like, we don't want to work with you. We told you what we're going to do. We don't need to work with you. We don't need you to do what we're going to do. Get out of the way. He was reminded of his moment when, Movement for Black Lives marched to his home. And then he came out, to his credit, and you've probably all seen that video where they literally did the Game of Thrones. Yes. The Game of Thrones shame. Yes. I'm like, man, don't let the black nerds get control of the crowd. This is what happens. But, they did him like that, which, and
Thrones will come for us all.
So that's where we're at right now. But everybody's hopeful. Everybody thinks things are going to get done. The nice thing here is that all of these grassroots movements, something we don't talk about, and you may have heard, there was some talk of like, the Bail Project here took in 30+ million. Took in $30 million before they even had a chance to say, stop giving us money. We don't know what to do. So they're in the process. Their budget last year was less than $500,000. They gave out more in bail through that first round than they had done their previous 5 years. So like, they're just trying to figure it out, but they have all this money. So then they said, go give to these, go give to these. That is to say, all of these grassroots organizations we have here now have millions of dollars in the bank, where before they only had, tens of thousands, some of them. Now it's doing the work of trying to figure out what they do with that, how they do it. And that's where my part comes in right now. I'm just trying to be the adult and help out where I can, letting the kids lead. I'm volunteering to help a Black woman, a mother who she felt the call to run for office. We have never had a Black woman serve in our state Senate. Literally, she went down that day and was like, I'm, today's the deadline. I guess today's the day I sign up. And she signed up to run. And so I just hit her up and said, whatever I can do to help. We're active and it's going to be all right. These kids are not stopping. So good. Everybody feels energized. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the report from where this version of history started in the great city of Minneapolis. And I'm so glad you got out and got to go camping. I'm working on it. Got a tent, got a sleeping pad, got a thing you put under the tent so you don't get stabbed by rocks in the middle of the night. Very important stuff. And so I'm going to bring us home by bringing on, let's see if she's still available, Sarah Ullman. I previously falsely introduced her as the president of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. And she's like, no, I run this committee. And so I just like, she's the mayor. Ullman, welcome back, Mayor Ullman. What's going on in your neck of the woods? What would you like to share with us?
Well, first, it's an honor to be your mayor. I, could only ask for such a privilege or ever hope for. I think the biggest thing that's going on in my neck of the woods is
what?
it's that I have broken my elbow, and so I apologize for my appearance, but I cannot reach my head to brush my hair.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the level of quarantine that I'm in right now. So I apologize. But
wait, Sarah, without getting too much into your life, but like, how do you break your elbow?
I wish there was a funny story, but I just ate shit in a gas station parking lot. Like, there's just like no, I just tripped over my own shoes.
So could you hold up your arm and just say your name?
This is Sarah.
Great. So
I feel like I also, it's when you lie in bed.
Everybody take a look at that. Sarah Ullman is a great advertisement for electric cars. You hear that? This happened in a gas station, in a petrol facility for, combustion engine vehicles. And so we got to move into the future, got to move with the grid, get electric. That does never happen to me at a charging station. Nothing like that. No violence. This is what the petroleum industry does. It breeds violence, y'all. So Sarah, share what else you came to share. I'm so sorry you're hurt, but I'm glad you're okay enough to laugh about it.
If my pain becomes progress, then it will have all been worth it. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for doing this, because I feel like, especially in this current state of quarantine, I've read like 10 books, I've watched 10 shows, and I'm like, people, where's some people, please? So thank you for doing this every week. It's nice to see you. And I wanted to talk about something that we're dealing with in my organization and that we're working on at One Vote. For the people who don't know about our work, I run an organization called One Vote at a Time, and we make in-kind campaign videos for candidates that will commit to gun safety legislation. So this is our fourth, we just had our 4-year anniversary. We started after Pulse, and we've served 236 candidates across the country and over the past 4 years. And so our work has changed dramatically because of COVID. Obviously, film production is sort of an impossibility right now, and ours was travel plus film production. And so it's even more difficult. But so we've shifted to this remote filming model where we're teaching candidates how to film themselves, a little bit of like teach them how to fish kind of thing. And then we'll take the footage back and we'll edit it. But the the reason I wanted to talk about this today is the adjustment on our model has, had a lot of challenges to it, but it's also had some advantages, which is before we could only hire one director for every state we went to, and we would serve like 25 candidates in one state. But now we're able to hire more directors and to pair with these candidates to coach them through this remote filming and help them find the story beats of their video and like really hone in with them on what the best messaging and story is for their video. So we heard from a director that we had worked with a few years prior that she felt really strongly that we should be having Black directors direct videos for Black candidates. And it's something that, we engage in a conversation about representation on so many levels, like in the electoral system. Our team is a team of women, entirely of women. And so we're engaged in this conversation on multiple levels. And we thought like this year is an opportunity to really like lock in on that conversation and to like take that feedback and see, how we could implement it. And I think, most of our directors are women of color. So I think that to begin with, and so that representation has always been important to us, but being able to assign different directors to specific candidates in a state is new. And so I think what we're talking about internally and like really working hard on is, we also want to hear from the candidates on this, because like we want to understand we're there to serve the candidates. Like that is our purpose and our intention and our goal. And we want to make sure that whatever it is that they need, that we're, delivering that to them. And we've had a really wide array of responses that have been like really challenging and interesting. And like, it's almost because we work with so many different candidates, there's, so many different opinions, right? There's no one opinion on something like this, but it ranges from like, oh, no opinion at all. Like when the way that we've been phrasing the question is there anything we should consider when it comes to representation when hiring a director for your video? And like, I think it's not just about, it is in the impetus for the question was Black directors, Black candidates, but it's not just about that. It's also about, language, like maybe there's a language that's spoken in their constituency that they would like to make sure that the director understands so that they can do a video in that language. We see that a lot in Texas or in states with a high proportion of Latinx constituents or Spanish speaking constituents. And so anyways, the variety of responses has been really like interesting and educational and challenging. And, we're really trying to engage with this and in a good way, but it's I just wanted to share something that we're like challenged by and working on. And like,
is there anything that I or this community or other viewers can do to help you in this mission?
You mean in this specific conversation or like the larger?
Wherever you think you need some support. I think there's I'm looking at the comments, there's a lot of love for this. We all know that one of the things really holding our democracy back is like terrible campaign ads. And you're just like, oh, you were so good. And then you went and you did that thing. And I've known Sarah for years. She's a great director and she's built this network. And they've won like so many other races that her team has helped with the messaging on through the previous travel intensive model. So the fact that you're scaling it, you're adapting, it's all women directors. Like, so whether it's broadly for one vote at a time or more for like this matchmaking to have like the best director for the candidate and like sussing out the candidate needs, or do you need more candidates? Like we're a nationally distributed crew here. Like Joseph is just representing, he dropped NCGA, like we all knew what that meant, like the North Carolina General Assembly. That's a insider, like, and then we got Gunner up in Minnesota at the public policy school, they're offering to do white papers and whatnot for the activists. So I don't even know who else is in the room, but this is the room where it happens. So if there's an ask that you have, like, please throw it out there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll say to, it's an election year. So I'll say to anybody who knows of a candidate that needs help, that we have a form on our website. It's onevoteatatime.us, all spelled out ONEVOTEATATIME. Long. I'm regretting that one 4 years down the road. But I will say that sending candidates our way who need our help is something that people can do. I'm not going to fundraise right now. I think your money can go to other other causes that need help in this moment. And I've spent the last couple years fundraising to be able to see our organization through this year. And so I will say that I think you should spend your dollars on other causes. But I will, referring candidates to us, I feel really excited about and inspired by the group of directors that we're hiring on. And so I don't have a specific ask when it comes to this kind of conversation, but I do, but I did want to like sort of put it out there that, this kind of thought, or we're being challenged by and like interested in, how COVID is changing our model, allowing us to serve people better, to serve people differently. And, just thinking about spending my days thinking about it. So
good. Well, good to see you. Heal up.
Thank you.
Yes, and good luck with that. And thank you for running all of California, Madam Governor.
A pleasure.
I appreciate you. All right, bye. That was Sarah Ullman, not just on her neighborhood council, but the founder of One Vote at a Time, making actually quality campaign ads for folks who believe in gun sense as opposed to that nonsense, which I like. So we have definitely gone over time this week, which is all good. We can do what we want. It's like, it's my computer. I mean, as long as I had like internet and hard drive space, and my voice is actually stronger today than it was Thursday, so I feel all right about that. I'm going to try to play a few things on the way out of this show. So let me see if I can like kind of get my act together. This bartender from Houston, we were able to locate the video. Thank you, Joseph, for finding it. It was on Facebook, now YouTube. It's okay if we all make mistakes, and it's like hard to distinguish between like the billionaires, and it's like which part of the like duopoly, which side of the duopoly was the video on? Like, was it on the Facebook or the Google side? So all good. But let me see if I can grab it. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I haven't screened it, so I hope it's not just a dude like dropping his pants and saying racial slurs with his penis out. So I'm counting on you to not have directed us to that, Joseph. But let's just see what the first few moments of this are like. And then I have already dropped the link in all the chats, so you can find it for yourself. It's also me just like testing out my tech.
Hey, everyone. We had a very simple message to share, and that message has been shared now over 150,000 times. We wanted to tell the governor of the state of Texas that we were dying. And I don't know if he heard it, but a lot of other people did. And in all of that, the message that I received from all of those people, 99% of those people, was please, please keep sharing. Because the message we have is all of their message. So when 130 plus thousand people say that we should be saying something, then we're going to say it. And so we have more messages for you. And we're going to come every day and we're going to do the exact same thing until there is some result. The first message is for the public. All of you out there in all of your cities, in all of your neighborhoods, all your communities, bars are not just boxes that manufacture drunk people. We are the epicenters of community. We are the definitions of cities. Without Warren's Inn, without Grand Prize, without Two-Headed Dog, Houston is dimmer. Without the Richardson, without Leanda, Brooklyn is dimmer. Without La Palapa, without Holiday Cocktail Lounge, the East Village is dimmer. Without Inkwell, Omaha is dimmer. Without Three Clubs, without Residual, without Harvard and Stone, LA is dimmer. I could do this all day. I could do this all day. You can participate in these societies. You can participate in these communities and not understand what it is that they are, because it's not your job. It's our job. But now you need to understand what is at risk. The first thing that's at risk is human lives. And many of those lives are people who are forced to go back to work in those places when you're reopening your economy. So think about that before you go and try to argue about a mask with someone who literally had to go back to a job they didn't want to go to because it wasn't yet safe. This is a message from the future. We're in Houston, Texas. We're 3 weeks down the line, farther than any major city in the United States. And I'm here to tell you that if you screwed up as badly as we screwed it up, then you're going to see the same spike in cases. COVID-19 is raging through the bar community right now. It's raging through it. And I guarantee you, it's a very simple math equation. If 10 people on a staff get sick and they work sick, how many people did they interact with in a night? And where did those people go? The spike in these cases is directly related to reopening our economy. And it's not our economy, it's places of convenience. You don't need to go and you should stay home. To all the people who are thinking of reopening in those economies, I was wrong. I was wrong. When we tried to reopen in as safe and responsible way as possible, it turns out there was no safe and responsible way. Because the only people, pretty much, who wanted to go out were the people that were comfortable to do so. And a lot of those people were the ones who said, I don't want to follow your guidelines. I don't want to do your stuff. I don't want to wear your mask. There are 700,000 bartenders in this country, and they're all suffering. This is an existential crisis. Our first crisis is that we, as humans, are exposed and we're dying. And if we get exposed and you guys come out, you'll get exposed too. That's how it works. But if you want to have a world that you recognize at the end of this mess, then you have to understand that we need to remain, because if we go away, then all of this stuff falls apart. I'm in downtown Houston right now, and they spent millions of dollars trying to build a derelict downtown up over the course of years. These months could destroy that entire effort, and they'll have to start all over again. And that's one city and one neighborhood and one community. You can say that about every single city in the United States. You will have to do it again, and it will cost way more in the future than figuring out something now. So as people, as citizens, and as guests in our bar, the very least you can do for us is share. And it's not just bartenders, it's everybody. It's restaurants, everybody in service. It's tattoo artists. It's people who do your hair, people who do your nails. It's the people who are in the mall and ring up your purchases. We had to go back for your convenience, and your convenience is making everything worse. It's not reopening economy. It's short-term thinking with long-term consequences. And for every city who's thinking about crawling into reopening, I'm looking at you, Los Angeles, New York, looking at Seattle, all of you places that are thinking of trying to find a way to let people back into your spaces. I'm going to give you a message from the future, because we were the experiment. Texas was the experiment. Governor Abbott decided to experiment on the humans in the state of Texas, which includes 4 of the 7 biggest cities in the United States, and said, let's see what happens. And now we know. Now we know, because now we have to close back down, because the people who were responsible stayed home. There was a small group of people who said, yeah, let's see, like we want to be responsible and we want to try it too. And they were there, but most of the people who didn't were all of the knuckle draggers who decided everything was just over. That's not a Texas thing. That's an asshole thing. And you guys have assholes too. It's going to happen to you unless you do it right. And at this point, I don't know if there is a right. But insist. You have to insist. If someone is going into your place that doesn't have a mask, they shouldn't have anywhere to go anywhere near you that would let them in. You have to coordinate. You have to insist that people do things right. We could have done that. We could have done that. And if we did it, maybe we wouldn't be in this position. But if I turned someone away because they didn't want to do what was right, there were plenty of other places that were unscrupulous and allowed them to come in. And there were enough of them and there were enough people that allowed this virus to infect my community in droves. Bartenders are my people. You guys are my people. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to participate, go to every single person on your street, every single business on your street, and make sure that anyone who is not inclined to take the basic precautions to take care of your workers doesn't get to go and infect anybody else. We're the ones who have to make these decisions. We're the ones who have to enforce these rules. And it's not just true here in Houston. Again, from the future.
All right. So that was bartender Michael Neff of Commonwealth in Houston, Texas. Thank you, Eve, for finding that. Thank you, Joseph, for helping actually find that. And thank you, Michael, for that message. I saw in the chat, somebody said, this is better than any of the messaging we've seen out of the coronavirus task force. True that. And there's something that Michael was saying that I want to pop in on, and then I promise we'll wrap this up and let you get back to your lives. But I'm feeling kind of frisky. So I'm going to, high school buddy of mine shared this image that does a good job of dramatizing like the mask situation. And what does it mean to wear a mask or not wear a mask? So there's three scenarios here. The first scenario, you've got someone with COVID-19 who's not wearing a mask, kind of speaking at a healthy person with a mask. Transmission probability, 70%. Now, if the person carrying COVID, you flip it around, they've got a mask, and the person who doesn't have it has no mask, transmission probability drops from 70 down to 5%. Keep your germs to yourself. You can think of that as like, keep your nasty germs on your own face. Science. And then the third option is everybody wear a mask, and the transmission probability drops to 1.5%. Now this varies by what the material is, how loose your mask is, prevailing winds, probably your genetics. I don't know. So it's directional, but sound within kind of those proportions. And I had not thought, Eve, I thank you so much for sharing that video, because I've been trying to think about everything. Nobody can think of everything. And it didn't fully occur to me that like there's a self-selection involved in these reopenings. And like, who really wants to go be hanging out indoors at a bar? It's what Michael calls the knuckle draggers. It's the people who are the least concerned about the health of others. And that's those people are dangerous to others by definition, because this disease takes advantage of that lapse in judgment, of that selfishness. COVID-19 exploits selfishness and uses that as a vector to expand its reach and its reign. So yeah, I'll watch the rest of that on my own time. I hope you will too, but I got the message. And yeah, the idea of these experiments, I mean, that's also what's happened with Governor Abbott and so many other people. It's just like, we'll lead. You know, South Dakota, Mayor Nome up there with the meatpacking districts a few weeks ago was just like insisting, got to do this for Trump and for Jesus, but like whatever version of Jesus they are holding close to their heart, probably not the one who would say the things that they're saying in his name right now. So, you know, that's happening. And I'm sympathetic too. And I think here's the problem is that the US, like, we can't afford to not reopen either. And I think the idea of just staying at home, given the total absence of support, the thing that I was promoting weeks ago, thanks to the Safra Center at Harvard and Danielle Allen, who runs that group, and all these people who put this plan together, was testing, tracing, and supported isolation. TTSI. The S is very important. Support. You don't just like lock people in their houses with no water and no food. Like, support them. And support means money. But we have been long building a society of cruelty and selfishness and isolation. And so we created this precariousness. We can't withstand it. Our economy depends on people putting themselves at risk. The fiscal health of our households depends. Before the pandemic, people were paycheck to paycheck. So what is it during a pandemic when there's no more paychecks? And this federal support's about to expire. And Mitch McConnell doesn't think there should be another round of assistance. So like, you're boxing people in. And so I will rant against the knuckle draggers with everybody else, but also there's desperate people who don't want to go to work but have to. And so that is an economic hostage situation. We're putting like a fiscal gun to people's heads. Do you want to die of COVID? Do you want to die of starvation? That's actually the brokenness of America. It's not just being ravaged by COVID. It's being ravaged by ourselves. It's being ravaged by the privatization of everything and the defanging and defunding of our common safety net, such that we are not in a position to withstand a COVID when it comes along once every 100 years. It's just our dumb luck. And then also climate change. So, if only someone had told us this might happen. Yeah. I want to leave you on a good note. I'm not going to drop you back into that. I found something through my friend Trisha Wong. She posted on the Instagram, and it was the part of Brooklyn that I miss. So it did not feature rats or like overpriced coffee. It was the part that I missed, which is the community and the multiracial, multi-ethnic, like, coming together. So I'm going to share a video from an Instagram account called St. James Joy. Actually, it's St. James Joy 2020, I think. Oh snap! What is it? I don't want to get it wrong. Let me promote the right one. It is St. James Joy 2020, and on June 11th, it seems like the block president, because there's a community that still has community, and there's block presidents. It seems like she started playing music out her window and encouraging people to hang out on the sidewalk and on the stoops. And folks started doing it. It was like a little smattering. And now it's just a full-on dance club out in these streets. So let's enjoy that. I'll play that. That'll be like the exit. And you can follow and find St. James Joy 2020. Thank you, Trisha, for putting that out into the world. Thank you, everyone who came on the show today and shared. We had Joseph, we had Daniel, the pandemic love doctor. We had Gunnar in Minneapolis. We had Eve in the Bay Area. We had Sarah in right here in Los Angeles, just across the the LA River. I got to do a whole show about how you get called a river, because East Coast Baratuna is like, that's a drainage pipe, but it's cute. Anyway, she lives across the questionable body of water from me. And I'm so glad that she shared one vote at a time and her efforts there. And I hope your elbow heals. Thanks to everybody who commented, shared a link, asked a question. Didn't get to all of them, never do. I'll be live on Thursday night next in Instagram format. And you can stay tuned. In the meantime, here's my number. You can text me, 202-894-8844. This is my community number. I give alerts when I go live. I share big news like, I got a podcast. And so if you came into this broadcast late, please be sure to check out the podcast that I do called We're Having a Moment, which is about all this, because we're having a moment, y'all. So with that, appreciation to everyone. And let me just coordinate myself to do this. Oh.
Yeah, I'ma go get your bag. Yeah, boy, I'ma get your bag.
Look at everybody wearing a mask. They slow it down. That's like the Matrix, but nobody got hurt. I think that's really beautiful. All right, so that was that. I will see y'all in the future. Thanks for all your contributions, and let's keep each other safe. Oh, Joseph asked for the number one more time, 202-894-8844. I'm just long holding for dramatic pause.